Welcome to 21st Century Dating Decoded. We're making modern love simple. Get ready to decode your love life. Brought to you by Speed Mingle.
You know, if you walk into a casino and sit down at a slot machine, you generally understand the implicit contract you're signing. Like, the house always has the edge, the odds are just mathematically terrible, the machine is literally engineered from the ground up to take your money.
Oh, absolutely. It's built for that.
But you sit there and play anyway, and why do we do that? Because every once in a while, the bells ring, the lights flash, and you get a payout.
Which is, that's the core principle of intermittent reinforcement.
Oh.
From a behavioral psychology standpoint, it is arguably the most powerful hook we have. If a reward is predictable, the brain adapts and just kind of gets bored.
It becomes routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if a reward is totally random and unpredictable, the brain becomes obsessed. It's the same reason lab rats will press a lever until they collapse if the food pellet only drops occasionally.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Now, take that exact scenario, but imagine a slot machine that is visibly broken. The glass is cracked, it's occasionally shooting off sparks, and instead of taking your quarters, it requires your emotional energy, your self-esteem, and hours of your free time.
Wow. Yeah.
And you know it's broken. Everyone standing around the casino knows it's broken. But we all just keep pulling the lever anyway.
That paints a remarkably accurate picture of the modern digital romance ecosystem. We are analyzing a space where the user base is acutely aware that the system is failing them on a systemic level.
They know it's bad.
They know it.
Yeah.
They hate the machine, but they feel completely trapped by the casino.
Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I'm so excited for this. Our mission today is massive and honestly a little overdue.
Oh, way overdue. I'm ready.
We are diving into 21st Century Dating Decoded. The goal here isn't just to complain about the apps. Everyone does that.
Right.
We want to deconstruct the underlying mechanics of why current digital mating strategies are failing so spectacularly. And more importantly, we are going to explore how to build a strategic, low-risk dating portfolio to protect your sanity.
To do that, we've synthesized a really diverse stack of sources for this deep dive. We're pulling data from proprietary app algorithms, psychological research on digital burnout, and some frankly terrifying case studies on predatory relationship coaching.
Which is wild.
It's so wild. And we're even looking at anthropological shifts, like modern takes on arranged marriages and the operational mechanics of the new offline in-person mingling events.
Which I am fascinated by, but before we start talking about solutions and portfolios, we have to survey the wreckage.
We really do.
We have to look at this widespread digital burnout because the initial promise of these apps a decade ago was infinite choice. The idea was that geography was no longer a barrier to finding your person.
The world is your oyster.
Exactly. But the reality seems to have mutated into just infinite exhaustion.
The statistics on this burnout are staggering. Looking at the latest data, 78% of dating app users report experiencing active burnout.
78%.
Yeah, and when you break that down by demographic lines, it's as 80% of women and 74% of men.
Think about that number for a second. If almost 80% of people using a specific brand of toaster said it made them fundamentally miserable and ruined their mornings, there would be a massive consumer recall.
The company would fold overnight.
Right. So what is actually driving this? Because my first instinct is just the sheer volume of time people spend swiping.
Yeah.
Like, is it just thumb fatigue? FOMO?
You'd think so. But time spent is actually only a secondary factor. The primary driver is much more existential. 40% of users cite the total inability to find a good connection as their main source of burnout.
Oh, wow. So it's not the time, it's the futility.
Exactly. They feel like they're panning for gold in a river that has already dried up. That is followed closely by the sting of continuous rejection at 27% and the burden of having repetitive, mind-numbing conversations at 24%.
The endless "how was your weekend" texts.
Yes, it's not physical fatigue. It's a profound sense of alienation.
That alienation really manifests in the behavioral changes we see, particularly with something like ghosting. Disappearing without a trace used to be something you only heard about in extreme situations.
Like a witness protection program.
Right. Now it's just Tuesday. It feels like this app-based ecosystem has just changed how we meet. It fundamentally altered the social contract of how we treat other human beings.
We have to look at the intersection of technology and neuroscience to understand why that social contract dissolved so quickly. In a pre-digital era, if you met someone through a mutual friend, went on 3 dates, and then just vanished into thin air, there was a heavy social cost.
Oh, for sure. Your friends would know you behaved terribly.
Exactly. Your reputation, your community would take a hit. On an app, the cost of abandonment is 0. The relative anonymity lowers the threshold for acceptable cruelty because there is no community oversight.
But the sources suggest it goes even deeper than just a lack of social consequences, right? Like, it is actually rewiring our cognitive empathy.
This is where the research gets incredibly sobering. When you communicate digitally, meaning you are staring at a heavily curated profile on a glass screen rather than looking at a human face in real time, neurological scans actually show reduced activation in the insula and the anterior cingulate cortex.
Let me pause you there. The insula and the anterior cingulate cortex, those are the regions responsible for processing empathy and social pain, correct?
They are. They help us mirror the emotions of others and feel compassion. When you are looking at a screen, your brain simply does not process the other person's humanity in the same visceral way it does in person.
That is terrifying.
It is. Your empathy centers are essentially dialed down. So it is psychologically and neurologically much easier to discard digital profile than it is to walk away from a flesh and blood human being. We're participating in our own digital dehumanization.
That is a wild visual. You're swiping and your brain's empathy muscle is essentially in zero gravity, just atrophying.
That's a great way to put it.
And then when you finally do match with someone and start messaging, you enter this bizarre paranoid state of what the research calls message hyperanalysis.
Oh, yes.
We have all experienced this.
Yeah.
You send a text, and then you just stare at the 3 little typing dots, totally overthinking the response time.
Text-based communication strips away all the evolutionary tools we use to gauge safety and intent. There is no tone of voice, no micro-expressions, no body language.
You're flying blind.
Completely. Because of that vacuum of information, a text message becomes a blank projective surface for our cognitive distortions.
So if someone has, say, an anxious attachment style, a delayed text isn't interpreted as, oh, they're probably driving or in a meeting.
No, not at all.
It immediately spirals into confirmation of their deepest fears of abandonment. Like, he took 4 hours to reply, so I am fundamentally unlovable.
And conversely, someone with an avoidant attachment style might interpret a perfectly normal follow-up text as a suffocating demand for their time. The medium itself breeds misunderstanding.
To make matters worse, the experience inside this ecosystem is radically different depending on who you are. The data highlights a gender divide that basically describes 2 completely different dystopias living side by side.
The contrast is stark. For the average heterosexual man on these platforms, the defining experience is profound invisibility.
Yeah, the numbers on this are brutal.
They really are. The algorithms and user behaviors result in male match rates hovering between 1% and 3%. The vast majority of their effort, their swiping, their carefully crafted opening lines, goes entirely unacknowledged. The psychological toll of that continuous, silent rejection is heavily documented.
It's like submitting your resume to a black hole every single day. But for women, it's the exact opposite problem. They aren't invisible, they are overwhelmed.
Yes, it's conversational exhaustion, a deluge of low-effort messages, inappropriate comments, and just sheer volume.
And when you factor in age demographics, the disconnect becomes even more pronounced. The swipe stats data provides a rather brutal reality check on this.
It does. A 50-year-old man messaging a 25-year-old woman gets a 14% reply rate.
Meaning 86% of those messages are going straight into the void.
Yes. The researchers actually pointed out that based on the conversion metrics, someone utilizing that specific age gap strategy would statistically have better odds cold calling random numbers out of a local phone book.
That is hilarious and tragic. So if 78% of us are burned out, if the men are invisible, if the women are exhausted, and if our neural empathy centers are literally powering down, why are millions of people logging on every day?
Right.
Is it just the intermittent reinforcement, or is there a cultural narrative keeping us hooked?
It's a potent combination of both. You have the dopamine hook of the slot machine, but layered on top of that is a pervasive cultural narrative that dictates we must optimize our romantic lives.
Optimize. Such a tech word.
It is. We are told we deserve perfection, that we should keep our options open, and that settling is a failure. But this creates a massive societal vulnerability. You have millions of people who are exhausted, disillusioned, yet desperate for genuine connection.
And whenever you have a massive pool of desperate, exhausted people, you inevitably attract predators looking to monetize that vulnerability.
Which brings us to the unregulated relationship coaching industry. When traditional avenues fail, people start looking for a guru who claims to have hacked this system.
We have a case study in our sources, a really harrowing expose by Danielle Ryan on YouTube that perfectly illustrates the dark side of this desperation. We are talking about a highly educated woman, fresh out of a PhD program, who got pulled into a $21,000 trap.
It's hard to even fathom.
She was paying an online relationship coach $1,800 a month for a year.
To understand how someone highly educated falls into a trap like that, we have to look at the anatomy of the scam itself. It rarely starts with a blatant demand for cash. It begins with a discovery call utilizing high-pressure sales tactics designed to exploit emotional pain points.
It sounds a lot like the tactics used in fitness scams or even cult inductions. You isolate the insecurity, amplify it, and then present yourself as the sole solution.
That is the exact playbook. The coach used a classic manipulation technique, telling her that her dating struggles were simple but not easy.
Oh, I hate that phrase.
It's so insidious. He created this illusion that her lack of success wasn't due to a flawed dating ecosystem, but a personal blockage. And the only way to prove she was serious about removing that blockage, the only way to show the universe she was ready for love, was to make a massive financial sacrifice.
So draining her savings was framed as an act of commitment to her future self. That is incredibly manipulative. And what did she actually get for 21 grand? I mean, for $1,800 a month, I would expect a team of private investigators vetting candidates and a personal stylist.
The reality was essentially copy and paste pseudotherapy. The primary deliverable for this massive fee was the coach posting the exact same paragraph into a private Facebook group every single week.
Wait, a Facebook group?
Yeah, it was a generic prompt. What were your dating breakthroughs, questions, and challenges this week?
That's it, a Facebook group prompt. What happened when she or the other 10 to 15 women in this cohort inevitably realized they were burning money and expressed frustration?
They were met with textbook, toxic positivity, and gaslighting. When clients complained they weren't meeting anyone, the coach told them they were vibrating at the wrong frequency.
Oh, no.
He instructed them to do a gratitude practice and dance every morning, implying that if the coaching wasn't working, it was their own fault for not having a positive enough mindset.
Dancing in your living room to manifest a husband for $1,800 a month. It would be comical if it wasn't so devastating. But our sources highlight a danger here that goes way beyond financial ruin.
The financial loss is awful, but the psychological danger is much more severe. This coach was operating wildly outside of any recognized clinical scope of practice. Several women in this specific group were suffering from severe, documented clinical depression.
Which is so common when you're dealing with extreme burnout and loneliness.
Exactly. They needed the intervention of a licensed, trained mental health professional.
Instead, they got an unregulated life coach attempting to treat serious mental health conditions with rebranded Tony Robbins motivational quotes.
It's gross negligence. And the veneer of deep care was completely transactional. He would make wildly inappropriate comments about clients' bodies, including specific comments about this woman's breasts, under the guise of helping them embrace their feminine energy.
That is so gross.
It really is. And when asked specific logistical dating questions, he would often ignore them entirely to ramble about his own dietary habits or nutrition.
The ultimate reveal of his true character happened at the end, right? Like, she stopped showing up to the calls for months, and he was dead silent. He didn't check on her well-being once. But the very second her credit card stopped being charged at the end of the year.
He flooded her inbox.
Yeah.
Suddenly, he was deeply concerned, not about her depression, but about her lack of commitment to her growth.
Just shameless.
And to put a final, bleak punctuation mark on the efficacy of this program, out of the 10 to 15 women in that cohort, by the end of the year, only 2 were in relationships. One of whom was already dating her partner when the program started.
It is infuriating. But analyzing this scam leads to a really interesting realization. The scammer was able to exploit her because she desperately wanted the traditional romantic fairy tale. She wanted the cinematic, sweeping love story.
Which is what we are all sold from a very young age.
Right. Which makes me wonder if the pursuit of the fairy tale is what keeps us trapped on the broken slot machine and what makes us vulnerable to con artists. Maybe the solution isn't finding a better way to play the game. Maybe the solution is entirely redefining what a successful partnership looks like.
That pivot in thinking is gaining significant traction. We have a piece of source material from Autostraddle that profiles a trans man in his late 20s. He has consciously decided to step completely away from the pursuit of romantic love. He isn't looking for a romantic partner. He is exclusively seeking a co-parent.
The article frames this as a queer arranged marriage. Now, I have to admit, when I first hear the phrase arranged marriage, my mind immediately goes to oppressive patriarchal structures. But they are reclaiming and reframing this concept entirely, aren't they?
They are looking at the foundational mechanics of traditional arranged marriages through a modern, pragmatic lens. The sources bring in an anthropological example from South Africa to illustrate this. In many cultures, arranged marriages are not about forcing two strangers together against their will.
Right, it's not a kidnapping.
No, they are deeply pragmatic alliances vetted by families or trusted communities. They prioritize shared moral values, financial alignment, and family stability over the volatile, unpredictable spark of romance.
And these modern iterations usually include veto power, right? As it is not force.
Absolutely. It's mutual consent based on aligned life goals rather than chemistry.
So instead of chasing the butterflies, the dopamine hit that keeps us addicted to the apps, this is essentially treating a marriage like a contract to build a family unit. You are looking for a reliable co-founder for your life.
By removing the immense pressure of romantic compatibility, you actually strip away a lot of the anxiety. You aren't constantly evaluating if they give you butterflies. You are evaluating if they handle stress well, if they are reliable, if you agree on how to raise children and manage finances. It's a highly functional, resilient structure.
I can see the logic, but I have to push back a little. Doesn't this sound a bit bleak, a bit unromantic?
I get that.
I can hear people listening to this and thinking, is this just raising the white flag? Are we so exhausted by modern dating that we are just settling for a roommate who will split the mortgage and help drive the kids to soccer practice?
It's a valid critique, and for someone whose primary value is romantic passion, it would feel like settling. But for others, it's not a surrender, it's an evolution. The modern Western concept of marriage places a crushing burden on one single individual to be your best friend, your financial partner, your co-parent, and your passionate lover for 50 years.
That is a lot of jobs for one person to do flawlessly.
It is arguably an impossible job description. By uncoupling romance from partnership, you relieve the relationship of that burden. It is an acknowledgement that romantic passion inevitably ebbs and flows, but logistical, moral, and familial alignment can sustain a stable unit for decades.
That is a fascinating paradigm shift. But let's say a listener hears that and says, no, I still want the romance. I'm willing to brave the digital dating pool to find a romantic partner. If they are going to do that, they have to change their strategy.
They absolutely do.
They have to fix their digital foundation, starting with how they present themselves. Because right now, the sources suggest most people are stuck in what's called the beige period.
The beige period is a direct defense mechanism against the burnout we discussed earlier. Users have been rejected and ghosted so many times that they try to protect themselves by creating homogenized, universally inoffensive profiles. They sand down all their edges.
This is the phenomenon of the brunch trio, isn't it?
That's a perfect example. A profile that proudly declares, I love mimosas, sleeping in on Sundays, and my dog.
The problem with the brunch trio is that if you tell me you like coffee, sleeping, and dogs, you have successfully filtered out absolutely no one.
No one at all.
You've described every mammal with a pulse. It is a politician's answer. You are trying so hard to appeal to everyone that you end up appealing to no one.
And algorithmic data proves this. Profiles that lack distinct signal are actively penalized by the system. The data overwhelmingly points to radical specificity as the solution. Analytics show that when someone likes a specific text prompt on your profile, it is 47% more likely to result in an actual date compared to someone just liking a photo.
Because it requires actual engagement, not just a knee-jerk reaction to a pretty face. So how do we write prompts that actually work?
The experts outline several winning formulas, the most effective being the sensory anchor.
Okay, walk me through a sensory anchor. How is that different from just listing a hobby?
If your hobby is board games, a beige period profile says, I like staying in and playing board games. A sensory anchor says, I love the click of a board game piece settling into its slot.
Oh, that's good.
Or instead of saying, I like doing crosswords, you say, I'm in my element when there is a half-finished crossword and a cold cup of coffee on the kitchen table.
Oh, that is so much better. It takes a concept and makes it tactile. It puts the reader right in the room with you.
It gives the brain something tangible to hold on to, which bypasses the swipe fatigue blur. Another successful formula is playful misdirection.
Give me an example of that.
A prompt that says, my greatest skill is canceling a plan and feeling absolutely no guilt about it.
It's a little antisocial, but it works because it's relatable. It signals self-awareness and a sense of humor.
Exactly. And the final formula is hyper-specific details. For instance, I'm the third person editing someone else's sentence, and we're all happier by line 4.
See, I love that because it's polarizing. If you are a grammar nerd, you instantly fall in love with that person. If you aren't, you think they sound obnoxious and you swipe left.
Which is the whole point.
Right, you want to filter people out, but contrast that with what people usually do.
Most people fall into the trap of the work flex, where their dating profile sounds like a LinkedIn bio, talking about crushing quarterly targets. Or they use the abstract aspiration, claiming they want to change the world or love to travel. Those fail because they were performances. They aren't invitations for someone to imagine a life with you.
We fix the text, we have our sensory anchors, but it's still a dating app, which means it's a highly visual medium. Let's talk about the visual capital, because the rules for photography in these sources are incredibly rigid.
The data leaves very little room for debate on photos. Rule number 1, no sunglasses. Covering your eyes immediately reduces the viewer's subconscious trust.
Makes sense.
Rule number 2, no group shots where you are not obviously the focal point. At swipe speed, which is a fraction of a second, nobody is playing detective to figure out which one of the 5 guys on a boat you are.
And absolutely no bathroom mirror selfies. The sources are vehement about this. The lighting is terrible. The background is usually messy. It just signals low effort.
But there's a surprising counterintuitive finding regarding high-effort photos. AI photo analysis reveals that highly posed, professional studio headshots can actually decimate your match rate.
It seems backwards. You'd think paying a professional to make you look flawless would boost your stock.
It harms your perceived authenticity, which is the primary metric for digital trust. A heavily retouched, studio-lit photo creates what researchers call a trust gap. It feels artificial. It signals that you are trying too hard, which paradoxically makes you seem less approachable.
Interesting.
The data consistently shows that candid, natural light lifestyle photos that look like a friend took them on a good day, are what actually convert to matches.
Let me play devil's advocate on this entire section. We are talking about A/B testing our text prompts, utilizing sensory anchors, and calculating the authenticity score of our natural light photos. Doesn't this just turn us into marketing executives managing our own personal brand? Are we sacrificing our actual humanity just to hack an algorithm?
I understand the resistance to it. It can feel deeply unromantic. But the alternative is being invisible. The goal of this optimization isn't to create a fake, slick persona. It is to remove the digital friction that hides your real persona. You are simply translating your authentic self into a language that the digital ecosystem can effectively process.
Okay, so let's assume we've done the work. The profile is optimized, the text is specific, the photos are candid, the matches start rolling in. How do you manage those incoming connections without immediately hitting the wall of burnout again?
Right, the burnout cycle.
This is where my favorite concept from the sources comes into play. We are going to treat our emotional energy the exact same way a Wall Street fund manager treats capital.
The dating portfolio strategy. It is a brilliant framework for emotional risk management. Think of a highly volatile new match, someone you just started talking to, as a high-risk penny stock. If you take 100% of your emotional capital and invest it into that one volatile match and they ghost you after 3 weeks, you are emotionally bankrupt.
You are crying in your car while the stock delists. So to prevent that, we need asset allocation.
The sources suggest dividing your energy strictly. 50% of your energy must remain in your core holdings. This is your stable baseline. It represents your career, your physical health, your deep friendships, and your hobbies.
The blue chip stocks?
Exactly. These are investments that deliver guaranteed, steady dividends. No matter how bad a date goes, this 50% ensures your personal net worth remains high.
Then we have our growth stocks.
That comprises 30% of your portfolio. This is active dating. Going on first dates, chatting with new matches on the apps. It has massive potential upside. You can meet a life partner, but it is inherently volatile and risky. By rule, you never allocate more than 30% of your emotional bandwidth here.
That leaves a final 20%.
The remaining 20% goes into liquid assets. This is low stakes, social networking, community events, and casual meetups. It provides immediate social interaction and community without the heavy emotional lock-in of a one-on-one date.
I want to dig deeper into the financial mechanics we can apply to the 30% growth stock category, the active dating. Because the sources talk about using stop-loss orders in romance.
I love this concept.
Now, in finance, a stop-loss is an automatic trigger. If I buy a stock at $100 and set a start loss at $90, the second the stock drops to $90, the computer sells it automatically to prevent me from losing everything. How does that translate to a human being?
In dating, a stop-loss order means setting clear, non-negotiable boundaries before you get emotionally compromised. If a match starts breadcrumbing you, giving you just enough attention to keep you on the hook but refusing to commit to a date, or if they exhibit clear red flags, your stop-loss triggers. You execute an immediate, polite exit. You cut your emotional losses before you invest more time hoping the stock price goes back up.
Then there's dollar cost averaging, DCA. In investing, instead of dropping $10,000 all at once at the top of the market, you invest $500 a month over time, mitigating your risk. So in dating, I assume this means pacing yourself.
Precisely. You don't invest 100% of your heart or tell someone your deepest traumas on date number 2. You scale your emotional commitment incrementally. You only increase your investment as trust and reliability are proven by the other person's consistent actions over time.
And finally, due diligence. Looking at a company's actual earnings reports rather than getting swept up in the speculative hype of a charismatic CEO. In dating, that means paying attention to how they handle a delayed flight or how they speak to a waiter rather than just blinding yourself with the physical chemistry.
Chemistry is the speculative hype. Character is the earnings report.
I love the framework, but I can hear the cynics now. Doesn't applying stop-loss orders to human beings make us cold? Doesn't it kill the vulnerability required to actually fall in love?
It can sound clinical, but it's actually an act of deep self-preservation. This framework is not designed to help you avoid intimacy. It's designed to ensure emotional resilience. If you don't manage your risk, the inevitable burnout will completely destroy your capacity to connect with anyone.
That makes sense.
By protecting your energy, you ensure that when the right person finally comes along, someone who proves they're a safe investment, you actually have the emotional reserves left to be deeply vulnerable with them.
Protect the asset, and the asset is you. That makes perfect sense. Now I want to pivot to that final 20% of the portfolio, the liquid assets, the low-stakes offline social networking. Because according to our research, this is where a massive cultural migration is happening.
It's a real shift.
Gen Z, in particular, is experiencing such acute app fatigue that they're abandoning the digital casino and heading back to the real world.
We are witnessing a major renaissance of offline connection. The movement is often referred to as slow dating, but it's vital to distinguish this from the offline dating of the past. This is not the high-stress, awkward speed dating of the late 90s where you sat at folding tables with stopwatches, paper name tags, and clipboards.
Thank goodness. The anxiety of forced rotations is the opposite of a liquid asset, so how has the offline space evolved?
It is evolved into what the industry calls the Speed Mingle ecosystem. The entire architecture of these modern events is engineered to lower social barriers and reduce the cortisol spikes associated with meeting strangers.
Which aligns perfectly with everything we've talked about today. Moving away from passive, isolating swiping toward intentional, structured community. Let's break down the operational mechanics of how these modern mingles actually function.
It starts with the environment. Atmosphere dictates behavior. These events are hosted in sophisticated, low-stakes venues. The sources highlight places like Garden and Grain in Pensacola as a prime example. The aesthetic is curated. You arrive, you are handed a signature cocktail or a premium mocktail, and there is no rigid structure, no bells ringing to force you to the next table.
But if there's no structure, how do you prevent the dreaded small talk? Because walking up to a stranger and asking, so what do you do for work? Where did you grow up? It's agonizing. It feels like an interrogation.
The organizers have solved this by introducing conversation catalysts, specifically a tool called the 52+2 card game. These are strategically placed around the venue. The cards bypass the prefrontal cortex's rehearsed scripts entirely.
Oh, that's smart.
They prompt revealing, thought-provoking questions. It forces you out of the resume exchange and immediately shows you a person's authentic personality.
And from what I understand, this modern mingle concept isn't a one-size-fits-all. They've segmented the ecosystem into different modalities based on what you actually need in your social portfolio, right?
That segmentation is key to its success. They actually have 6 distinct modalities. Let's say you want connection but can't leave the house. They have Speed Mingle Anywhere, which is authentic face-to-face video interaction.
Nice.
If you want casual mingling, there's Speed Mingle Social, which are relaxed weekly gatherings at local bars. Then you have Speed Mingle Happenings, which are curated, activity-based events for people who bond better over shared tasks.
My favorite part is that they recognize that not everyone is looking for romance. Sometimes your portfolio just needs friends.
Exactly. That's where Speed Mingle Neighbors comes in. High-energy social events designed explicitly for turning local strangers into friends. Absolutely no romantic pressure allowed. They even have Speed Mingle B2B, which is a high-octane round-robin format strictly for professional networking.
Wow, so it really covers everything.
And they are launching a final modality called Speed Mingle 1-to-1 in the fall of 2026, which is pre-vetted, personalized, low-pressure meetings based on real compatibility. Because it's about building out your entire social ecosystem, not just finding a date.
There is one logistical hurdle with meeting in real life that always terrified me, and that is the exit.
Oh, the exit.
You have a great 20-minute conversation with someone at a bar, and then comes the horrifying moment where you have to ask for their phone number, knowing you might face instant, agonizing rejection right to your face.
That friction point is exactly why apps became popular in the first place. But the modern IRL events have solved this by brilliantly integrating technology to support the offline experience. They utilize a specialized web-based system, often without requiring you to download a bulky app, where you simply scan a QR code upon entry.
Okay, so I scan the code, I'm logged into the event. Then what?
You put your phone away and mingle freely. You have real, human conversations. But when you speak with someone you feel a connection with, you can discreetly open the web app and swipe yes on their profile.
Ah, I see.
The brilliance is in the privacy architecture. Your contact information, whether it's your phone number, Instagram, or WhatsApp, is only revealed to the other person if they also swiped yes on you. It is a double-blind match. It completely eliminates the fear of face-to-face rejection while preserving the warmth of in-person chemistry.
I see where you're going, but let me challenge this for a second. If we are just standing in a beautiful bar in Pensacola, secretly swiping on our phones, haven't we just built a physical version of Tinder? Aren't we back where we started?
It is a very different psychological mechanism. On an app, you are a disembodied profile. You aren't real, which is why ghosting and cruelty are so rampant. In a hybrid physical space, your physical presence demands accountability and basic human decency.
Yeah.
You have to look them in the eye.
That's true.
The technology isn't replacing the human interaction. It is merely acting as a silent digital concierge to handle the awkward logistics of exchanging numbers.
That makes total sense. The tech facilitates the connection rather than replacing it. It's an additive feature, not a substitute.
Exactly. It gives you the safety of the digital double opt-in, with the undeniable biological reality of in-person chemistry.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today on this deep dive. Let's synthesize the journey we've been on. We started by decoding the grim reality of digital burnout, the 78% of people exhausted by the broken slot machine, and how the apps are literally starving our neurological empathy centers.
Yeah.
We exposed the predatory $21,000 coaching scams that feed on that exact desperation by selling fake fairy tales and toxic positivity.
From there, we explored alternative relationship paradigms, such as queer arranged marriages, which prioritize stable co-parenting and alignment over romantic volatility. We discussed the mechanics of fixing our digital profiles by escaping the beige period, utilizing radical sensory specificity and candid photography to build authentic trust.
We learned to protect our emotional energy by treating it like a diversified financial portfolio, utilizing stop-loss orders on toxic matches, pacing our investments with dollar-cost averaging, and ensuring 50% of our energy stays in our core holdings.
Right.
And finally, we looked at the real-world solution, the modern offline mingle ecosystem that uses smart tech to remove the friction of rejection while forcing us to interact face-to-face again.
It provides a comprehensive, actionable framework for navigating modern romance without losing your sanity or your savings.
The takeaway for anyone listening is incredibly clear. You have to stop relying entirely on passive swiping. Build up your core holdings first, invest in yourself. And when you are ready to allocate energy to your liquid assets, step away from the screen, find a structured real-world environment, and actually practice the art of human connection again. We highly encourage you to attend a local Speed Mingle event to mix, match, and mingle.
And if there isn't one in your area, contact Speed Mingle to become a local host or venue partner. You can find us on all the audio platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Deezer.
Or catch the video on Speed Mingle TV via YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire TV. Just search Speed Mingle Network or use the mobile web app at speedmingle.mobi. The official hub is 21st Century Dating Decoded.com. Please smash that subscribe button, drop a 5-star review, and share this with that friend who still uses an expired filter on a dark headshot. We all have one.
We really do. I want to leave the listener with a final provocative thought to mull over. Early in our discussion, we explored the neuroscience of app dating, how staring at a glass screen reduces activation in the brain's empathy centers, making cruelty like ghosting incredibly easy. It trains us to be numb to each other.
The digital dehumanization effect.
Think about the inverse of that effect. If staring at a screen is literally training our brains to be less empathetic, consider what happens when we reverse the input. Could the physical act of returning to face-to-face gatherings, making sustained eye contact, and listening to a stranger's voice across a table do more than just improve our dating odds? Could stepping back into the real world actually be the key to neurologically rewiring a generation's lost capacity for human empathy?
If the slot machine is completely broken, maybe it's finally time we gather our chips, walk out of the casino, and step out into the real world. Until our subsequent episode, remain deliberate, maintain protection, and consistently date with a defined purpose.
Welcome to Speed Mingle.
Where making real connections happens in
Stream,
seconds.
swipe, socialize. Your ultimate connection network.
Jump in now.
Thanks for tuning in to the Speed Mingle Network.